Good Friday morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. I hope you're having a good morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Friday, November 10th, 8 a.m. on the East Coast. Time for the hot topic of the hour. Democrat West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin announcing he will not seek Senate re-election. But he is signaling he's not leaving politics. Manchin issuing a video statement on X saying, quote, "What I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together." Sarah, obviously this is stoking speculation that Joe Manchin is going to try to run for president and compete against Joe Biden. Your reaction?
That's right. I think it's interesting to see this sort of pro-democracy crowd get really nervous now that voters might have an additional choice here, because I think it's pretty clear that Manchin would only take votes away from Joe Biden. I mean, there are a lot of disaffected voters right now who don't like Donald Trump, about half the country, but who are really dissatisfied with Joe Biden. They're worried about his age. They're worried about how bad the economy has been and the way they've experienced the economy, and just looking and seeing all the unrest in American cities. I mean, they want an alternative. And Joe Manchin would pose a real threat to Biden by dividing the vote, because, you know, Trump and Biden are very, very close. Biden can't really afford to lose 2 or 3 points in battleground states to someone like Manchin.
So, I mean, how does RFK play into that, Sarah?
Well, I think that RFK is really interesting because obviously he has a background as a Democrat, comes from a prominent Democratic family, but I think he pulls votes away from Donald Trump because he is of that same populist vein, questioning institutions, you know, harping on the mistrust that a lot of Americans feel with the government. So Donald Trump has, a similar problem with someone sort of siphoning off votes in the margins.
Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think bottom line is I agree with that. I think RFK actually does speak that libertarian more to the right, which I think this is a great point when it comes to Joe Manchin. He clearly speaks more to the left than the right. And also, if this is a big problem for Biden, because I saw the stat today, 39% of likely Biden voters picked their candidate because they dislike their rival. This is a really bad place to be. It's not because Biden's doing anything good right now.
Wow. Yeah, sure. I mean, look, everywhere you look, there's another fire to put out, and yet the administration won't admit it. President Biden is now disputing the polls, and the polls clearly show him trailing former President Trump in the swing states of Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada. Watch this.
Why do you think it is that you're trailing Trump in all these swing state polls?
Because you don't read the polls. There are 10 polls. 8 of them I'm beating him in those states. 8 of them. You guys only do 2. CNN and New York Times. Check it out. Check it out. We'll get you a copy of all those polls.
Okay? You don't believe you're trailing in battleground states?
No, I don't.
Excuse me, but it was the New York Times and the Siena poll which said that Joe Biden is trailing President Trump in those swing states. So he's saying the New York Times. Yeah, I know. It's the New York Times that just said it. In an interview with Univision last night, former President Trump spoke out, and he spoke about the support he's receiving from the Latino community in those swing states. Watch this.
Well, the Latino vote is so incredible because they're unbelievable people. They have incredible skills, incredible energy, and they're very entrepreneurial.
The message they are sending back in these numbers that we're seeing in the polls.
I think bigger than anything now is security. They want security. They want to have a border. They don't want to have people coming in and raiding their house or doing bad things. The borders work both ways.
Sarah, your reaction, and as you know, the border was one of President Trump's main priorities to ensure that we were not getting terrorists coming through the border. When President Trump was in charge, the border apprehensions were at a 40-year low. Now we're at a 20-year high, Sarah, in terms of apprehensions.
That's right. And, I think Democrats tend to treat Latino voters as a sort of monolith. They, in a lot of instances, sort of pander to those voters using identity politics. And, they're not a monolith. They're a really diverse group of people that sometimes don't just vote on the liberal cultural issues. They're economic voters as well. They're security voters. They want to have good jobs and put food on the table and not worry about their children's safety. And so I think that Donald Trump is speaking well beyond the identity politics that's all Latino voters are really getting from the left in a lot of instances.
Well, Ryan, I'm glad Peter Doocy asked the president these questions, but, he just blows it off and comes up with these things. Look at the New York Times. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. This was the New York Times.
Maybe that speaks to the fact that he's getting up there in age. He's not able to comprehend these things anymore.
Or mental capacity.
I was trying to be polite. But I do think it is a problem. He's going to be 86. If he's reelected again, by the time he's done his presidency, he'll be 86. He turns 81 at the end of this month. This is a big problem. We have all these conflicts going on globally. Is this who we want as our leader, going and trying to negotiate with all the conflicts going on in the world? I think it's a huge, huge problem, and I think America is very concerned.
And we will be talking about Biden's upcoming meeting with Xi Jinping, which is happening next week. We've got much more ahead this morning. Coming up, former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe is here. We are discussing China and Russia potentially interfering in the U.S. election. We've got news on that. And then his reaction to the growing number of subpoenas against the Biden family for influence peddling.